Yo, what is going on, my fellow weebs? Kerno here, and welcome back to the channel. So today we'll be going over Karo's Nameless City spoiler talk video. I know, another React video, but guys, I love this lore stuff. I've been wanting to talk about this a whole lot more with a lot more people, so I'm actually really excited to check out Karo's perspective and point of view. I've had a little bit of a spoiler myself since Karo and I have talked about it a little bit on the side before he made this video, but I am curious to see what his overall thoughts are now that he's kind of put them together into a video, and then see how that changes maybe my perspective or point of view, see what we agree on or disagree. Also wanted to mention specifically that there was a mistake I had in the previous video that I'm going to go ahead and mention. I tossed it into a pinned comment, but not everyone looks at comments, so I want to make sure that I mentioned it out loud as we go over everything here. But either way, if you guys are new to the channel, hey, I'm Chrono. I like our PSO2 content. Would much appreciate subscribers working towards that 10K mark, hopefully by the end of this year. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into this. Now, if you don't know who Karo is, I don't know how in knowing creators or watching my video and not knowing who Karo is. But Karo's a good friend of the channel overall, and does some amazing content. Probably one of the best creators we have when it comes to just general PSO2 content. So I highly recommend subscribing to his channel if you haven't. There'll be links in the video description, of course, to the video as well as this channel. So definitely check him out.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the Nameless City, and I will be lore dropping as well as talking about spoilers. So if you do care about those things, I highly recommend that you skip this video or come back to it after you complete chapter 7 of the story. But
Obligatory spoiler drop or spoiler warning drop. You have not been warned. It wasn't just from me, it's from Karo. I mean, I didn't warn you at the beginning of this video, but it should be pretty obvious by now.
before we jump into all of that, if you're new to the channel, I upload NGS content daily, so if you do play this game, I would really appreciate a subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. And
you don't have a choice. Sub to the channel, chat.
Anyway, without further ado, let's begin the video.
I don't watch a lot of Karo videos. I try not to watch my friends' videos. I don't want to have too much overlap I want to not as much overlap as possible. I come back and watch them later. And it's just now occurring to me, our intros are kind of similar. That is not on purpose. that is not on purpose at all. That's my bad. Maybe I'll change my intro. I don't know, dude. I'm really bad at intros and outros.
Alright, so the very first thing I want to showcase is the Easter egg if you completed the base game, and when you were on chapter 7 you get an extra dialogue option. I'm going to show you guys what the Easter egg looks like and then explain what it actually means. So in case you didn't know, when you come to your quest menu over here, you can go to the Arcs Chronicles main story and you can jump to any chapter of any story that you want. So in our case, we're going to chapter 7.
Fantastic
and we're going
ad,
back
by
to
the way.
Nameless City over here, and then we're going to click on Start Quest. And this will bring us exactly where we started in the Nameless City, where we first enter. And I'm gonna be skipping a lot of the cutscenes over here, so this is fine, this is fine. But before we get that Easter egg, if you select So Where Are We actually get a little bit of information on where exactly is the Nameless City. I'm gonna let the dialogue play out here.
I do not know the exact location, but I know we are in orbital space above Alpha.
I told you guys, outer space.
What do you mean, space?
What she means is that where we are right now is way up high among the stars we see when we look up into the night sky from Alpha.
Alright, so here is
I guess
where we get the third dialogue option.
Now that I think about it, I guess technically Halflings have never been to space, so like being in outer space is probably weird. I never thought about it like that.
As you can see, come of it, isn't this place ... This only comes up if you've completed the base game, because it actually gives you a flashback of what happened in the base game. So I'm going to click on this, but just keep in the back of your mind what they just said earlier. We are in space. We're in orbital space somewhere, and we are cloaked, all right? So anyway, I'm going to play this, and we're going to see the little Easter egg. So here we go.
I'm going to pause in the middle of this. I'm sorry.
So we're looking around. We're like,
And we look directly at this building.
Here's the flashback. Well, bam.
This is okay. So this is actually what I technically got slightly incorrect. I did, again, I posted a correction, but the point of this flashback was still the same, and I'll explain it more.
You guys saw that? You saw the little split image over there?
Yeah, they had
so
to.
now we're getting a little
Kara.
headache,
What is it?
and Ina's like, "You okay, bro?" And we're like, "Nah, we're kind of screwed." It doesn't matter which one you pick over here. You know, if you
this is what I want to focus on. That was so we see a flashback. Was our character seeing the person, or were they seeing the area, like the actual the zone that that person was in, right? Like where what was it they were specifically seeing?
If you go, that was, we don't get any extra dialogue. She just kind of looks at you weird. That's
That
all, as you can see
was
right
what?
here. He just kind of goes like,
What's
and then
going
the
on,
dialogue
Mitchell?
continues and nothing else happens. All right, so we're gonna skip all of that. All right, so now that you've seen the Easter egg, I'm gonna explain what exactly it means. So over here is a screenshot of the Easter egg that I just showed you, the little flashback that you had. So, you know, you're like, okay, interesting. Why do we have this flashback? Well, we're gonna enhance this image CIA style, as we can see right here. This is actually a
Yep.
screenshot directly taken from episode 5 of the base game. As you can see, it's exactly
So I said this was episode 2 because it reminded me of a fight that happens. And either that fight happens later on in episode 5 and I totally missed it, or that fight did happen in episode 2 and I'm thinking of a different interaction. So this is a character that we you know what, let me let Caro explain. It's his video.
1-to-1. So, as we know, this character is Matoy. Well, I guess if you've never played the base game, you wouldn't know who this character is, but she is
Best girl
Matoy.
Matoy.
She's one of like
Yes,
your
yes.
best friends. She's kind of your love interest. She's kind of like best waifu in the entire game. And
Yep.
yeah, she just follows you to the ends of the earth.
If you
and
disagree,
fights
you're
for
objectively
you and
wrong.
with you and blah blah blah. But the thing that I want to point out over here is she is holding Clarissa. This rod, this weapon, is called Clarissa. However, the one that she's holding is a replica version, which is like a copy
Okay, he
version
mentions it.
of the
Nice.
actual Clarissa. The reason for this is because they lost the actual Clarissa. They couldn't find where Clarissa is. And yes, the rod does have a specific name. It's called Clarissa because it's quote unquote sentient and it can talk to you. But the thing about Clarissa is it's considered one of the Genesis weapons. For the uninitiated,
Isn't it a
Genesis
cosmogenic
weapons
arm?
are pretty much equal to like Archons in Genshin Impact or Aeons in Honkai Star Rail. They're literally like god tier weapons which can destroy or change the universe single-handedly.
More
But
or
remember,
less,
I
yeah.
said that this was a replica version of Clarissa. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this giant orb behind us with all the disco lights is the actual Clarissa. This is the original Clarissa that disappeared.
Okay, so we don't know that that's actually Clarissa. We know that looks a lot like what Clarissa looks like. It is, I mean, if you've seen Clarissa, you know, like this is basically Clarissa, but we don't know for certain that this isn't like a replica Clarissa or something made in the mindset of Clarissa or anything along those lines. We can't say this is Clarissa for certain because we haven't, there's nothing that tells us this. But yes, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I'm gonna say it's Clarissa.
And
But I have to be specific about this because people will be like, well, streamer actually, and you know, hit me with that actually and be right. And then I feel stupid and then I'm mad. But you know, that's not the point.
suddenly reappeared for who knows what reason. So this is super interesting because Clarissa, this legendary weapon, has a very unique trait where it can absorb negative photons or bad photons and convert them into good photons. However, in order for it to actually do that, it comes at a cost. All of these Genesis weapons are two-edged blades, and where there's always a negative trade-off for all of this power. And with Clarissa's ability to turn negative photons into positive photons, the negative photons need to go somewhere, and they go into the user. So in the base game, there was a case where we actually absorbed a ton of negative photons, and we were at the brink of corruption, because if you absorb too many negative photons, you get corrupted and you become a bad guy. That's the TLDR. But in order to avoid that, we were put into cryo sleep. And just by sleeping over a long period of time, the negative photons just evaporate and they disappear, and then we become good again. So with this knowledge that we
Did he not talk about it? I'm gonna keep going. Actually, I'm gonna stop here. So yeah, we go into cryo sleep after episode 3 after absorbing a ton of negative photons and wake up in episode 4 where things have changed or we're in a different location in the arc ship. But that screenshot or that flashback that you guys see of the cryo chamber when they talk about like the guard or not the, I guess the guardian or someone from prehistoric, I guess. Oh, I guess you can consider prehistoric because it's before they recorded that history. But from the arcs of old, essentially. That screenshot is actually from base game of when they're talking about us being in cryo sleep. That's our literal cryo chamber.
we've been put into cryo sleep multiple times throughout the base game. And there's also time travel involved in the base game as
I
well,
mean,
where
technically we only
we've
got pulled
gone
across like
back into the
once,
past to change
but we
things
time
in
traveled a
order to
lot.
fix things in the future. I'm not super surprised that when we completed chapter 7, Zevetto kind of dropped a bombshell on us and was like, the original 909 is still in its pod, so who are you? So, he drops a huge bombshell on us, and we're all kind of like, wait a second, are we actually playing our original character in the base game?
Yeah, I'm still
And
on that
in
train,
my
by the way.
personal opinion, I think we are. I think we're
Ah,
still
Carol's with
playing
me. Let's
the original character
go.
that was 1,000 years ago, or 500 years ago, or how many hundred years ago. We're still playing the exact same character because we were put into cryosleep. And so when the Starless attacked us, we were still sleeping. We didn't know what was going on. And so when we woke up, we were just like, oh, what on earth is happening? Maybe we slept way too long and we got memory loss or something. So when we landed on planet Helpha, we didn't know what the heck was going on, and our combat ability did degrade over time, and so we had to build it back up. But now I want to talk about the residential area, or the Nameless City itself, and what it actually means. As I showed you guys earlier in the cutscene, we are currently in space. We can clearly see that we're in space. Here's
Yeah,
blue
it's
skies,
very
and
obvious.
then
I
right
mean,
here there's a giant cut in the
thank you.
sky, and it's
Thank you.
just space right here.
I've
All
seen
right, you
multiples
can
like,
see it all around. It gathers all around the entire arena. There's just this void of space, right? So what exactly is my hypothesis over here? I think we are still on the Oracle ship. So we created Planet Helpha, or well, the Resurgent Arcs created Planet Helpha as a simulation, right? So that was just its own little planet. We go there, we train, blah, 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 blah. But where the actual Resurgent Arcs were living, they were still living on the Oracle fleet, or our spaceship that we're currently on. And this very specific spaceship seems to be the exact same one that we were on in the base game. For those who've never played the base game, our general hub area is the Oracle fleet, or the spaceship that we're on. And because our central hub was a spaceship, we were able to travel to different planets and just jump down an orbital strike, just like in Helldivers and stuff like that, and liberate different planets. So, it was all good and dandy. However,
I technically sort of, we didn't really liberate planets as much as we dealt with populations or nature kind of overpopulating and destroying itself, or the false spawn intervening and destroying different populations in nature and things like that. But it's sort of like that, yeah.
when we were introduced into NGS, we were told that the Starless came along and killed the entire Oracle fleet and killed everyone, and there was no one left alive, blah, 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 blah. But I don't think that was the case with this specific spaceship. I think that our Oracle fleet, the one that we were in the base game, is like the sole survivor, and that we are currently still on it. This residential area, it just so happened, in episode 5 of the base game, we were here as well because we were under attack by false spawn and other stuff, and so we needed to repel them and fight them off. So that
So yeah, it
is
happened in
my
episode
theory.
5. I'm just
My theory
remembering the
is
time frame.
this is the Oracle fleet. We're currently on the Oracle fleet. We are the exact same Guardian from 1,000 years ago. We're not the clone. We are the actual originals. However, this begs the question of the whole 909 thing. So, who exactly is 909? From what we've been told is it's clones of us. We're the original, we're the Guardian, and 909 is just our strand of DNA, and whatever clones that are coming out from our strand of DNA is all called 909 from, the first generation, second generation, so forth and so on. That is my understanding of the whole 909 clone situation. The only thing that I'm a little bit confused is Gora was a 909 clone from my understanding, from like the second generation or third generation. And then we have Aina, which is Gora's offspring from my understanding again. But if Aina was born on planet Halpha, that means that she must have a mother, right? So does that mean maybe they not only found our gene, but they also found Matoi's gene? And maybe there's a Matoi clone out there, which is why Zevetto thinks that Aina is so special. Or maybe Matoi, the original one, also went into cryosleep with us, because that would be 100% believable, because, she literally did everything for us in the base game. She was like,
Yeah, so there's a few things here as far as like my understanding versus Kara's, and I think this is where we differ a little bit. So the 909 designation, I believe, is just the number of clone that was supposed to come down. As in, like, there's tons of different clones, there's tons of different designation numbers. 909 being that designation number, not of our strand of DNA or genome that they're trying to replicate, because they mentioned specifically that they used a lot of information to try to replicate the arcs of old. And from my understanding of the situation, 909 was just the designation. It was just the number that we are specifically, right? So like 908 being before that, 907 being before that, so on and so forth, since there's tons of meteorons that have been dropped down. And because and the reason I feel like they're hanging on to this number is a mix of two things, right? It's part of what Zio was saying in his video, where like there was the representation of 909 itself in previous history. It's something that Phantasy Star games do a lot. So it's totally understandable. And it happens a lot in writing and a lot of this epic style of writing, where there'll be real world draws, real world parallels, with some numbers and things like that. But I think it's also just a device to be able to refer to our character, for Zepheto specifically, or for people that are understanding from that perspective, right? Because they refer to us as the Guardian for a while, or they refer to them as you, and then now, like, there's also the designation 909 that Zepheto can use, right? So I feel like that's the reason why we're getting the 909 moniker so often, where other characters aren't being called by theirs. Like, they can call them by their name, of course, because their names aren't going to be different. That can be programmed in. And for us, though, we all have different names, so 909 just makes the most sense to call us by. So that's my understanding of it. Again, I could be incorrect. It could be what Kara was saying is like the genome that's being used is 909, or the DNA strand that's being used is 909. But I also agree with the whole mindset of like, where does this leave the whole Garoa situation, Aina, and then of course Matoy, right? Like we have this draw to Aina and Manon to assist them. Man, of course, being a part of everything that's been going on, but Aina just being around when, of course, her dad had passed away and everything else. I'm still in the thought process of like, if these are all clones, like where's Garoa? How does that whole process work out, right? Like, was Zepheto like, Zepheto mentioned he had a lot of different bodies, right? Maybe was Zepheto was in Garoa's body, right? Like maybe that's why he finds Aina to be so special all the time. He's always so like, he's very nice specifically to her and doesn't say anything else. The other thing is like I honestly just noticed this, but do you guys see this right here where my mouse is? Is this Halpa? Is that what this is supposed to be? Is this somewhere else? I don't know. Like they mentioned we're in orbital space. And the other thing is that, yeah, and Kara mentions this too, is the fact that the fleet was supposed to have gotten wiped out, right? Zepheto says specifically like everyone was destroyed or everything was destroyed around him. But it's obvious that there were some things left over. So I don't think the entire fleet was destroyed. I think it was a situation where there were a few ships left over, maybe this one specifically, where previously the whole ship situation was a part of like, the different servers. It was kind of like built into the story almost in a sense, where you're part of a giant fleet of ships, and all the different ships all have like residential districts and everything else, and they all have their own pilots and everything, and basically all their own structure and everything like that. But it focused around our ship specifically. And yeah, in episode 5 we had to repel a false spawn invasion, and fight against them and everything along those lines. So we did fight in the residential district. So that's why, like, when we look at things like these buildings, I'm like, yeah, no, this is, I mean, you can see very clearly this is old Ark's text. And you're like, oh, well, why do we know, how do you know old Ark's text? Well, if it's funny enough, so if you actually go to the NGS site, so hang on one sec. Right. So you're on the NGS site. If you pop over to the fan kit and scroll down and we look at fonts, you can actually see the fonts here. And would you look at that PSO2 font? They actually have the base PSO2 font, which you can see matches up with the fonts that we're seeing over here. So this is actually base PSO2 font. This is like old Ark's font versus, of course, a New Genesis font that we have instead. See the very big difference. And I don't see a situation where they would have used, um, font or text from 1,000 years ago on architecture they're building at that time, right? And it's, you could argue the idea is that, oh well, maybe at the time they were still using that architecture, but I don't think they did. I think this was still just here, and they were using these buildings and they made upgrades that they could to them, because a lot of these do look very, very similar from that specific time frame.
You need protection, I got you. You need this, I got you. She did everything. She
Also,
followed you to
Matoy
the
was,
end of
yeah,
the
she
earth
was
to
the
hell and
absolute
back,
ride or
which
die.
was actually pretty amazing. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Matoi was actually still alive and she went into
I'm pretty
cryosleep
sure her
with
pod
you,
was behind
and
us.
maybe she was the one that woke you up from your pod and launched you down because the Starless was attacking or something.
I never
Who
thought about
knows?
that. That's possible.
And the big question I have now is if Matoi is actually around, Clarissa's right here. Clarissa is sentient. Clarissa can talk to people, and it's a giant rod right here. So why is Clarissa here? And second of all, if Matoi is alive and well, where is she? And if Aina is like the Matoi's clone or like has a little bit of Matoi's DNA in her, then she would be able to wield Clarissa, and she would
Yep.
be able to use this weapon to absolutely obliterate the Starless. So there's still a lot
Yep.
of questions to be asked, but at the very least, hopefully by this explanation, now you guys know that the Nameless City is on the Oracle fleet. We're on a spaceship. We can already go out into space since we are technically in space already, which is why in my previous videos I was like, I think this might become our new ship, our new hub. We might be chilling in the Nameless City from now on. Because if I open up the map over here, you can see
Oh, you can
this chunk right here is all
very
empty.
clearly
So
see it,
row
yeah.
G and row H is all empty. So now we're currently at the edge of the map, and as you can see, this looks very, very familiar. Doesn't this kind of remind you of Central City? We spawn over here, the shops are over here at the sides, and then this is Central Tower or Central Cannon. It looks very, very familiar. So I
Yep.
wouldn't be surprised if this is going to become our new hub when we eventually graduate from planet Alpha. We all hop onto the spaceship, we blast off into other planets, and then we go liberate and for democracy and liberty and stuff like that onto
yes.
all the other planets in order to save them from themselves.
Super America.
I wouldn't be surprised if that actually happens and this becomes our new hub. However, I do feel like if they did that, that would be a kind of a waste of all of the assets in planet Alpha. But who knows? Maybe they've got a new planet in the works, which I highly doubt. I don't think they're going to go that route anymore.
Yeah, I was like, I
feel like
Lycopium, but
NGS
we'll
is
see.
probably going to go back to its roots, where it's like we have a general hub area, and then we go off to different dungeons and different biomes and stuff like that, just like the base game. We probably are going to get that type of format again if we return to the spaceship or the Oracle fleet itself.
I think it's
Special
happening
thanks to all
regardless.
the members for supporting the channel. It really means a
We're
lot.
gonna have to jump on the member list, boys. Gonna have to jump on that member list. Anyway, but yeah, no, I agree. I think that's kind of the route that we're headed, honestly, when it comes to the future of NGS. And yeah, this just looks like a hub. I mean, this was the residential district that we dealt with back in base PSO2. I think there's a very big possibility that this just becomes the hub again, and we just kind of go out and go into different zones and different instances and things of that sort moving forward. I also think there's a really big possibility that we explore more of the actual ship itself before it becomes our hub. If, let's say, on the off chance Matoi is alive, then he's absolutely right. She could wield or she could be the one that has Clarissa out here. But the another thing to keep in mind is that Matoi is a part of a line of wielders of Clarissa, known as, I don't know how exactly, I can't remember exactly how it works out, but the wielder known as Claris Crace being the one who wields Clarissa, and she is one generation of, I want to say 3 or 4, I can't remember exactly. So there are multi generations of Claris Crace, and it's possible, based on what Kara was saying too, like, and I'm not sure if he mentioned or if he's talked about in other videos beforehand or just kind of forgot it here, but like if Aina has part of Matoi's genome in her, has part of Matoi's DNA in her, it's possible that she could be the next Claris Crace as well, being the one to wield Clarissa and then help us fight the Starless, which would give her a pretty crazy role in all of this, assuming 1, that's Clarissa, and 2, that Aina does have that DNA in her. But again, this is all speculation. This isn't something that we have any sort of information about or we know for certain. We won't even know if that's actually Clarissa. That just looks a lot like Clarissa. And it would make sense as to dealing with all the negative photons to dissipate them and things of that sort, right? So like all of that kind of makes sense. Another really big question is like, why would Clarissa be there? Like, what negative photons did she have to absorb to dissipate? And then if they were absorbed to dissipate, who was wielding her to help them dissipate those or that took in those photons? Was it a situation where Matoi was still around and she wielded Clarissa and now she's in cryo sleep or had to be in cryo sleep for an extremely long amount of time to dissipate those photons. Like we've had to go down that path beforehand, so who knows? But I'm yapping, and I've been yapping for a while, and I could continue to yap even longer about all of this stuff. But these are things that I absolutely love. So, shout out to Carol for making a fantastic video. Awesome, awesome talk. When it comes down to it, I'm going to enjoy talking about this more in the future. I don't think we're 100% aligned, but I think we pretty much agree with the number one important thing, which is I'm pretty sure we are our guardian from 1,000 years ago. This is not new to the Fantasy Star scene to do something like this, especially with PSO2. PSO2 has done what I like to call timey-wimey bullshit, which is just a very endearing way of saying they've done time travel all over the place, and they are no stranger to time travel or even long cryogenic sleeps that has us moving forward. So yeah, that's and then the whole idea of us being put to sleep actually is something that I brought up in yesterday's video where we talked about this, where there was a character who was very concerned about the need of us in the future and how he would be able to take care of that. And I really feel like the way he would do that would be putting us back into cryo sleep, and we would 100% agree. And if anyone from that era would follow us into that cryo sleep, it would be Matoy. Matoy is 110%, like, she was our love interest. She was our 100% ride or die, always had our back, no matter what the situation was. And like, if you played base game storyline, we technically always had hers as well. Even to the point of like entire plot points being about it. It was pretty crazy. If you haven't played base game story, go play base game story. It's really, really cool. And it gives a lot of context to what's going on right now. So either way, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here. If you have any other questions, feel free to toss in the comments below. As always, like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe and keep up with more. Definitely go check out Caro's channel. He's an absolutely wonderful individual, good friend of the channel. I'll leave links in the video description to all of his stuff. So yeah, go like his video. Even if you don't watch my or even if you don't watch his video all the way through, you just watch mine. Jump over there, leave a comment, leave a like, let it run in the background, help Caro out, because he is I mean, just I want to see more videos like this in the future. So we want to make these sort of things popular, these sort of things very, very successful. Anyway, take care, my friends. Peace out.